work it, make it, do it. Makes us harder, better, faster, stronger.
That don't kill me, can only make me stronger. I need you to hurry up now, cause I can't wait.
Well, I figured out how to do it a while ago, but never made that adjustment.
Yeah, that's what we good. Now we can keep on schedule, the schedule that we have, right?
Sure, schedule. Yeah, that's what we're working with, right?
So, Steve, we're recording? Yep.
Oh, say hi, Steve.
Hi. Sorry. I read that black dude. Got me. Always one.
Oh boy.
All right, ready?
All right, Tuesday morning, Varsity Strength Geeks, doing it up.
Back at it. Podcast number 4.
Number 4.
Who would have thought that we would have lasted this long?
I thought we would make it this long. Come on, I think this has got at least, we've got at least 20 in us.
You know, we'll tie this back to the topic we'll talk to later. Gamer, the R stands for resiliency. I think we have a piece of being a gamer.
Well, yeah, this is definitely a resilient podcast. You know, we're willing to fight through it.
Despite the lack of listeners that we probably have. Actually, though, we'll get into this a little bit later as well. But first hater, first troll.
Well, it's kind of like a podcast adjacent hater, but it's.
I think we can use it to fuel our urge and the fire to keep churning out podcasts, despite the fact that we don't know if people are actually listening to it.
Well, not just churn out podcasts, but quality
yes.
podcasts.
Of course.
See, we want to be. They talk about CrossFit. Speed. The speed of your movement versus how technical your movement is and how good your form is, and finding that kind of flirting with that line there. And I think we want to be flirting with it too. Is like how many we're putting out versus how good they are.
True.
And I think we're doing well right now. I think we're hitting it.
I think so. I think they're enjoyable.
I've enjoyed them.
I have as well.
All right, good. Well, I think that's all that really matters. If you're listening and you don't like it, well, don't listen.
Stop listening.
Or tell us how to make it better. If we can make it better, tell us how to do that too.
Yeah, tell us first, and then stop listening, and then listen to the new ones to see if we did a better job.
Yeah.
That's a good action plan.
Yeah,
People like action plans.
Action plans are good.
Yeah. All right, well, what are those? 2 things I want to do before we get into it.
Cool.
One, I believe we started off the last 3 podcasts talking about the weather at some point. I figure why not just go ahead and keep that trend up, because it is March 18th right now.
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to describe what it looks like out our window?
Please do, because I might...
Well, outside our window, we have a window in our office here. Outside our window, we have, it's a very cloudy day. Not that unusual for March, there's clouds. But there is about 8 inches of snow on the ground, which is a little weird. I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, no, I don't love it. It's not my favorite.
Right. No, this has definitely been one of the more ridiculous winters I have gone through around here. I mean, this is nothing compared to a lot of places, but for the DC metro area, kids have gotten like 8 days off of school. Like Montgomery County's gotten like 8 days off of school. The federal government's been closed for 3 or 4 days.
At least.
We're in the midst of this sort of heated up conflict with the Russians right now over Crimea and Ukraine. And I can just only imagine Putin just kind of looking at like what's going on. It's like U.S. federal government shuts down for 8 inches of snow, and just kind of thinking, "Wimpy Americans, no much for me." And what kind of message does that really send to the world that we're shutting down for so many snow days? But whatever.
So Andy, I love you.
Yeah.
And the fact that you bring
Have we introduced ourselves yet?
Not for this one, for other ones.
Okay, we'll do it in a second. No, continue.
But the fact that you are able to bring up Russia and Putin and talk about that in a podcast that's, basically the audience is directed towards high school athletes, high school coaches, and maybe the CrossFitter that we can pull in to take a listen to it. That you still were able to somehow fit Russia and Putin in there.
So this is my whole thing. We're calling ourselves the Varsity Strength Geeks. Yes, we're all about like high school sports, varsity strength.
But you're really emphasizing the geek part.
I'm emphasizing the geek part right now, but I see it's like you and I are 2 sides of this similar coin. you know, I had friends who described me as a geek in jock's clothing. You know, and maybe with the glasses, you're kind of a jock in geek's clothing. I don't know. But I think it's, you know, someone who's willing to geek out about like athletics and being really into not just playing sports, but really getting into what can make them better. In order to be really great at something, you have to geek out about it. And I think someone who geeks out, nerds out, really dives in deep into one subject is probably going to be someone who loves diving into another subject.
Sure.
And, you know,
I think and I give you a hard time, but the greater you can kind of increase your sphere of knowledge and things that you can touch into, the better you understand the world around you.
Right, absolutely.
So it's definitely a plus, and I just feel like people, I personally, want people to listen to it, and I just want to make sure that when people hear Russia and Putin, that all of a sudden the 3 or 4 listeners we have doesn't drop down to like one.
Yeah. Well, we'll think about this. We can talk about it the other way. Putin's really big into doing muscular, manly things and getting out there with his shirt off, riding horses and wrestling bears and whatnot. That's pretty cool. I feel like he could get a little CrossFit. I feel like that would be up his rated, and he's big into judo and whatnot. He's a out there athletic guy. And then on the other side, President Barack Obama is a baller. You know, he plays lots of hoops.
Big into the running.
Michelle talks about how kettlebell swings are like key to her arms being amazing, and you know, it's all around there. You know, it's all about being well rounded.
So if you'd like to be a political leader someday with a lot of power, make sure you work out.
Look at Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Look at Schwarzenegger. All I gotta say.
Perfect. All right, let's go back to the introducing ourselves.
Woo! 7 minutes in.
Yeah. 7 minutes in, you guys still have no idea who we are. I'm Rob Kepke, coach here at CrossFit Done Right.
Andy Holmes, also a coach here. We are the Varsity Strength Geeks.
Varsity Strength Geeks.
Woo!
That's our intro.
Cool. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into it today.
All right.
What are we talking about?
Let's throw with the gamer first.
Let's do it. Hit it.
All right, so there was an article that I came across a long time ago from this very well-known strength coach, Joe DeFranco. Works with a lot of high-level athletes.
High-level.
Yeah, I mean, like these are the best of the best. NFL players, MMA fighters. He works with a lot of professional wrestlers. Just basically, if you're trying to be a beast, a very powerful person, you go to Joe DeFranco. And he had this article that was titled, "What is a gamer?" And a gamer for him is somebody who also, the person that we think of that has it. And it being in parentheses. No, not parentheses. Quotations. Yeah, it being in quotations. So a gamer stands for, it's an acronym. The G stands for goal-oriented, the A is for accountable, M is for motivated, E is for exact, and R is for resilience or resiliency. And this is something I wanted to talk about because we were having this conversation, I think sometime last week, where we can tell when the kids that we're working with, we can tell, the ones who, are going to go on to that next level,
right.
basically who don't necessarily need our help, and the ones that are going to need some guidance and going to need to learn these qualities if they want to take their game to the next level, if they want to succeed. And I'm just not talking sports, I'm just talking life
overall.
in general. Yeah. So let's kind of delve into each one of these kind of characteristics, and then we can kind of bring it back and tie it into just, athletics, life in general. Sound good?
Definitely. Sounds good to me.
All right, cool.
And I've got some other little things to bring in, auxiliary ideas to that as well, that I've been poking around on, because this is something that I think is, at the forefront of building better people.
Yes, and I want to point out, so at the very end of the article, Joe DeFranco makes the point of saying the program that you use doesn't matter if you don't have it. And so that's how important, right?
Yeah.
That this is. The program is nothing compared to, having what it takes and to put your heart and soul into the program. And I think this is something we've probably said in the past before, but again, we're just going to hammer that point home right now. So we'll start with it first and foremost, goal-oriented.
Goal-oriented.
Right? So I would say this is pretty self-explanatory, right? You can't know where you're going, or you can't know how to. You can't know where you're going if you don't know how to get there. That's not right.
Ooh, I saw that quote in here. I'm reading a book. It's called Mind Body. Gary Mack is the author, and they're talking about a lot of similar things. You won't be able to get there unless you know where you're going.
There it is. All right, good. That's why I have you here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Right, so if you don't have a goal, how are you going to know what to do to work towards to get to that goal? So if you're coming into the weight room every single day, but you have no idea what you're trying to accomplish, where are you going? What are you actually doing? You're just basically wasting all of your time. So when it comes, Joe DeFranco is working with all these high-level, athletes. They know exactly what it is they're trying to accomplish. They know that these are the stats that they're trying to put up. These are the moves that they need to work on, and these are the things that they're coming in and they're hammering home when they're in the gym every single day. Right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's so funny that you've been kind of getting into this and talking about how our minds somewhat run parallel sometimes without really knowing it. As I've been reading this book, Mind Gym, which I think I'm going to pass around here once I'm through it, Gary Beck, it's a lot of sports psychology stuff, but he's talking about, a chapter I just read is talking about setting goals. And he uses an acronym called SMART, like gamer, that I think will fit well within that kind of G section of gamer, and it's S is for being specific, setting specific goals, M for measurable goals, which CrossFit we do a lot of that. Yeah. A for achievable goals, not having a goal too lofty, but having a goal that's kind of just right in that sweet spot of being a challenge but not impossible. R for realistic, again, not saying something ridiculous, and then T, having a time for that goal to be achieved. Not just something that's out there in space waiting forever and ever and ever to be achieved, but something that you can really set your eyes on. I think, it's hard to set goals, and I think I've written a little bit here for our blog about setting goals, and it's a hard thing to do, but it's...
We can link back to those.
Yeah.
Let's link back to those.
Okay.
Maybe put this together, make a note for that. Find it in the archives.
Mark it. But that's a challenging thing to do, and I think it's a very important thing to do, and you can kind of tell early on the people who are like, I have this in mind, I'm going to do this to get there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think kind of for myself and the evolution of what I've dug into setting goals, just first off, in terms of life quality and just being happy, having goals I think is very, very important. Right. Because otherwise you're just kind of in life, just kind of wafting around, and you don't know exactly, why are you getting up in the morning just for your day in general, right. And then why are you going about these tasks? And,
right.
And the more options you have, and this is a book, The Paradox of Choice by Barry Schwartz, I've never heard of that before. Basically, the more options that we have, the less happy we are, the more unhappy we are. And if we have a goal that basically narrows down our choices, gives us a direct focus on what we're doing with our life, what we're doing with our day, and our happiness increases exponentially from
Makes sense to me.
Okay? Now, and then off that, just one more thing about this goal piece is I'm huge into procedural goals versus outcome goals.
Right.
Right. And basically, a procedural goal is your goal is to do something every day versus, all right, so for example, if my goal is I want to squat 400 pounds. If that is just my goal, then there's still a bunch of stuff in between that I'm kind of missing. How do I get there?
Yeah.
But if my plan is I'm going to squat 4 days a week, I'm going to follow this program, and eventually I will get to that 400s because of that with the squat.
Right.
And so that's where I'm more, where I'm big about. I think that's where people don't necessarily talk. I think it's something that I've come across a lot more lately, but not necessarily talked about all the time. But I think that's more important than just saying, this is my goal. It's saying, this is my goal. I'm going to use this outcome goal to set my procedural goal, and then that's going to guide me along the way.
I like that. I think that's really important. Just, it's much easier to climb a mountain step at a time than, one big jump.
Exactly.
Not gonna do it.
And were you the one telling me about the story? I'm going to completely butcher this. The story of the guy who was like in the tundra somewhere, and basically he had to crawl like 5 miles.
Oh yeah. So I think I wrote about this as well. It was a climber. I'm trying to remember the name of the book that it was based on, but I'm trying to remember where he was doing his climbing, but basically got lost in a large crevasse and a crevice. It's a crevasse when it's in ice, man. It's a crevice. Crevices are just like little nooks and crannies. Crevasse means like a big gashing hole in a glacier.
So it's a giant hole.
Yeah, so it's straight down, probably a couple, maybe 100 feet even. So he falls down this hole and is stuck at the bottom the bottom there, and there's no way up. He's got broken like limbs, ribs, stuff like that, and he's kind of makes the decision. It's like, okay, I'm gonna die here. If I just stay here, I need to go deeper. I need to push into this cavern basically and keep going. And he sets little goals. It's like, in the next 30 minutes, I'm gonna make it to that rock. And basically drags himself. And a couple days later, he drags himself to a base camp that's miles away, completely exhausted, but he survives. And he's kind of comments again and again, and I'll try to find this story and kind of link to this as well, that if he had just said, I need to make it to base camp, after an hour, he would have been like, there's no way I'm making it to base camp. But it was all very small goals. Reachable goals,
yes.
Attainable goals, realistic goals within a time frame that he set for himself, and it's kind of amazing what we can kind of do with that. So that's an extreme example, but I think it pertains to a lot of different things. You know, I'm gonna finish this reading by 9:30. You know, I'm gonna finish my math homework by 7:45.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work through a problem in the next 15 minutes.
Or I'm going to go to the gym, set the clock for 45 minutes, and complete everything I'm trying to do
Right.
in that amount of time.
Exactly.
Yep. And we could keep, I was going to go into like Pareto's law and Parkinson's law, but those are the things that
We could
expand on
honestly
different
do
time.
a whole podcast here on goals,
Yeah.
just setting goals.
Oh,
But
definitely. Which is we should come back to that.
yeah, I think
later.
that's market something to think about.
All right, cool. So let's move on. So we got the G and the gamer as goal oriented. Next, we're gonna move on to accountable.
Accountable.
And this is huge, and this is something that you can pick up on right away, and it's really, really easy. You know, if you have somebody, I'll use an example from last night from my class with the kids I was working with. You know, say we're working on push-ups, and somebody goes to do a push-up, and they don't do it right, and then it's a matter of, you know, if I tell them how to do it right, do they go ahead and fix it and do it correctly, or do they make excuses for what they were doing?
Right.
Say, well, I just had a big dinner, or I did some push-ups before I got here, so that's why I didn't do that one correctly. And that's what you can tell. You know, the people who have it or who are starting to have it will take, you know, the criticism, or they'll take their failures and they'll acknowledge that it's nobody's fault except their own, and then they'll go about doing what they have to do to fix
Right.
it.
Yeah, I think self-accountability that's a hard skill to learn, especially, you know, I think for kids. Once they start maturing into high school, you start seeing like, okay, who's, you know, got it in terms of accountability. But I mean, kids learn to lie basically by the age of 6, and you know, we're not chasing pain. Most of us, we're chasing to kind of feed our pleasure centers at, you know, whatever cost. So kind of working out or doing a sport or anything that involves, you know, one more for people who don't touch the line, who don't do the push-up. That's a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
Definitely.
But you definitely do see it, the kids who not just, you know, who could probably get away with not doing that extra one or not doing that extra sprint, but who are like, you know what, I didn't do it, or you know what, I should do another one, I didn't go as hard as I could, and who push themselves to do that. I have a lot of respect for that, and I think I think coaches see that. They know who's working hard out there. They know who's like holding themselves to a higher standard.
Definitely.
And when you have someone who holds themselves to a higher standard than even like the coaches might hold them, or other people are holding them, I think that shows, and that's getting into someone who's ready to be a leader at some point as well.
Oh, definitely. And those are the kids that are going to get a chance. Those are the kids that, you know, even if their skill just necessarily isn't quite there yet, the coaches are still going to give them a chance to prove that they, you know, can potentially get the job done, and then the coaches know that they'll continue to put the work in so that they can get the job done.
Accountability, it's such a hard thing. I'm thinking about kind of, we work with a lot of high schoolers and younger, and it's a real challenge to get kids to hold themselves kind of accountable. And I'm sure it's not just, you know, in here in the gym, on the field, it's throughout the life. And I mean, I think human beings in general, like how many people nowadays, if they nick a car, they don't even know what their information number, they just kind of like, well, life, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, accountability, it's a hard thing to do, have personal accountability.
It's a long-term strategy versus
Yeah.
a short-term strategy, and we have a tough time, seeing that far down the road.
Yeah, and I don't just think it's a strategy. I think having personal accountability really is almost a philosophy of life. Like, I'm going to live my life in this way,
Right.
and it's a hard thing to do. But I think you could tell those people who have a lot of personal accountability. And I think those people are just instantaneously respected. When you see it, you respect it.
Yeah. Definitely.
And valuing that over maybe instantaneous gratification of being not accountable. That's a choice, that people make.
And I don't think anybody's perfect with it. And it's
No,
just-
absolutely not.
And it's a struggle, and it's just that, those people who have it, or who, those are the people who do it more often.
Right.
Or who really struggle with it when they don't hold themselves accountable. The
Mhm.
ones who just kind of have that nagging voice in the back of their head. And,
Yeah.
And I think, all right. Cool. Anything else on that?
No, we could do a podcast on each one of these, and maybe we should at some point. But this is great. I'm really liking this. But accountability is something I've always, really pushed myself to do, and I think you have too. And I think a lot of, if you're going to achieve anything, you have to be willing to hold yourself accountable, because it's all about, what do you do when no one's watching?
Of course. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, next, move on. The M in the gamer stands for motivated. And I would kind of argue right off the bat that the M, being motivated, is almost virtually impossible without the goal-oriented.
Right.
And those two go hand in hand, and they're huge. You can say you're goal-oriented and not be motivated, but then I would argue that you're not really goal-oriented. But you just can't. There's no way you can possibly be motivated if you don't have a goal. Nobody's coming in the gym or waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going for a run if they don't have a goal. Right? Nobody's doing that. You're gonna turn over, shut off your alarm, and go back to bed.
Right. Definitely. What this comes down to a lot for me, it's motivation is sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice to attain those goals? What are you able to give up, really? To prioritize your goals, what you want to become, what you want to do above, something else. It's the kid who's willing to stay an extra hour after practice and shoot free throws instead of going home, sitting on the couch and watching a little sports center. It's that takes some serious motivation to say, like, I want to be a better free throw shooter. I want to be more. Be able to contribute more to my team, and that does take a lot of motivation. And again, we're talking about all these things. Like, we see the kids in here, and I see them on the teams that I coach. Who, they're motivated. They want to put in the extra work.
Yeah.
You have to kick them off the field, and that's an awesome thing to see, especially in high schoolers. But I mean, you see it, in the pro athletes who are really, great athletes. It's the really there's a different. You can be a great athlete, but maybe not be the same motivated. I think of these motivated kids or athletes as the ones who have that kind of like killer instinct.
Yes.
I think, as much as I might dislike him as a human being or as a Laker, Kobe Bryant is a straight up assassin on the floor.
Yeah.
And that's because
Mamba.
he absolutely. He is motivated to beat Jordan. He is. He's gunning for it. He doesn't care. He is taking no prisoners in that pursuit.
Yes.
As he's gotten older, he's had to work on his post game. So when he's getting guarded by a smaller guard, he can take it down low and bang it around a little bit. Since he's lost some of his ups, he's had to work a little bit more on his mid-range stuff and his offhand. And he has put in work. He is a seriously motivated guy, and that's just absolutely terrifying to see someone so elite and so motivated that he's just unwilling to let anything get in his way.
And I'm going to go back to kind of what you're saying about knowing that you have to give up on something. Maybe not even knowing, but you do. So you can't have it all. You just can't. And using that Kobe Bryant example, Phil Jackson wrote a fantastic book called 11 Rings. I don't know if you've come across that yet, but it's one of the best sports books I've ever I've ever read before.
Wow, Rob, that's impressive.
My pseudonym is Phil Jackson.
You ghostwrote for Phil Jackson.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
Right.
So, but
we should be getting way more listeners then.
I know. Well, we have to play that part up a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll link to it. Yeah.
So
buy Rob's book.
So in the book, he talks about Kobe Bryant as Kobe's getting older, and I forget which championship team it was, but the new kids are being brought in, these young guys off the block, and all they want to do is they just got paid, they got their paycheck, they want to go buy cars, they want to go out, and Kobe's in the gym. And as he got older, and I think he's known this for a while, but as he continued to get older, he had to start sacrificing things. He had to start sacrificing going out to the club all the time. You have to sacrifice, the girls that are going to want you, all that stuff, if you want to be the best. You can give into it, but then I would say you're not as motivated. And the same with these young kids. You got to know that, you're going to have to sacrifice something. It's going to be sleep, maybe. It's going to be going out to party. It's going to be TV. It's going to be video games. It's going to be something that you have to give up in order for you to succeed at your goals. And I tell this story with people. So I'm 16. Play basketball, play video games is all I do, right? And then all of a sudden, I got this girl who wants to date me, and so then I have a choice here. I can't do all three. I just can't do it.
Or basketball game.
Yeah, well, the video games went.
Oh, that's good.
The
That's
video
nice.
games are gone. Yeah, I gave up the video games.
Look at you.
Yeah, I know. Gave up the video games. Probably gave up a little bit of the basketball. A little bit. I would just say that naturally happens. That's what happens in high school when you get a girlfriend. But, it was one of those things where, I made a conscious decision that these are my priorities. Unfortunately, I probably should have gone with the basketball as the main priority instead of the girlfriend. But, again, something always has to give. You cannot have it all.
Yeah, you really can't. And I think, a lot of, again, working with our high school kids, it's people with all this talent, like kind of raw talent. And you just know they're going home and, like, eating a bunch of junk food and slacking off, and it's like, man, you should be putting in extra work. You can get to that next level if you put in the extra work, but it has to come from inside. It has to be an internal thing, and I think that's what DeFranco talks about when he's talking about it. Yes. You either have it or you don't. Exactly. And it really is an internal thing.
All right, cool. Let's move on to exact. So all this talk about motivated, and if you don't know exactly what it is you're working on, then that's going to be an issue. You could be motivated, you should be in the gym, you could not be working on the right things. And the kind of the example he cites, DeFranco cites in this article, is a football player doesn't need to go run a marathon. Right. And this is the mistake I see all the time with a lot of high school coaches in their programming. Mm-hmm. Basically you use what your coach before you used. And that's what and you don't change anything. But, the question is, why are, football players out, running 400s over and over and over again? Why are basketball players out running miles over and over and over again? My conditioning test when I played basketball was a mile before the season. And I always won in the mile, yet I was the least athletic kid on the court. And so I was like, there's no correlation here between how well you do in this conditioning test and how you play on the court. Like something like doing a suicide in under 30 seconds would be a much better conditioning test than going out and running a mile. And that's just kind of what it ties back to. You could be goal oriented, you can be accountable, you can be motivated, but unless you don't have that sports specificity and knowing exactly what you're working on, then that's going to be a problem for you. And part of it is knowing that you need to go seek somebody who does know. Yeah. All the best players, they have coaches, they have mentors, they have people telling them exactly what they need to be working on.
Definitely. Just as it takes a village to raise a child, so they say, I think it definitely takes, a mad scientist laboratory workshop to build a beast of an athlete.
Yeah.
You need that support group around you, or coaches need to build that support group around their athletes. And it's not just that coach, because the coach is concerned with the player. We talked about that number 3 or number 2.
One of them.
Yeah.
We talked about that before though, but it does come to this like support group outside of the coach. You know, who is the coach saying, you know, I don't know what to do necessarily to get these guys in the best shape during the off season. I'm going to go to someone who has some conditioning expertise, who's like proven that they can improve athletes and do that. I mean, you got a email from someone recently saying, just basically complimenting the work you put in with one of your kids.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. We love getting stuff like that.
And I think that's absolutely huge. And you know, it wasn't necessarily something that the coach did, but it's certainly, you know, the work that this kid and you put in, the coach clearly recognized and was kind of blown away by. And it comes from doing kind of specific, sport-specific work.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the interesting things that we kind of do in here is that while we are kind of out of the frame of CrossFit, which is kind of covers a lot of different areas, you know, from the gymnastics to the Olympic to some endurance movements. We do, I think, do a pretty good job of, you know, programming for at least our high school athletes workouts that are getting towards their needs.
Workouts that are exactly
what they need.
They need.
Yeah, exactly.
In gamers.
Precisely.
Yeah, I mean, CrossFit is a GPP, like a general physical preparedness program off the bat. But when you know the needs of your athletes, you can pick and choose and take from a general program and give them exactly what we need. So if we're working with a lacrosse player like this kid was, you know, we did a lot of cutting. He was very, very slow compared to, you know, his conditioning was okay, but he was very slow. He wasn't very quick.
His foot speed was
very low, and so we did a lot of stuff to work on that.
I mean, shoot, by the end of it, you know, when we were doing ladders, I'd do ladders with him, and he was like half a second off of me most of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty quick through the ladders, typically.
Yeah, that's like,
You know.
if you could be a professional ladderer, I feel like that'd be it.
Yeah, well, not quite. There's some really fast people. But, no, I take pride in it. You know, I'm pretty good at a little salsa here and there, you know. But I think that's going to be, while we talk about, you know, at the low levels about how athletes, you know, we really want athletes and we can turn athletes into players. When we're creating like freak athletes for a specific sport, you do want to get, you know, specific about things. You do want to focus on, you know, if you're training for the NFL Combine, you want to drill on your 40 time. You want to drill on that T drill. You want to really dig into those little details that will give you a tenth of a second, you know, half a second here and there. And even if you're kind of dealing with a baseball player in here, we would work on, you know, what can we do to help them get their hips around a little bit quicker, to get a little bit more power through that rotation, or what can we do to, you know, help them really throw off of that kind of off-balanced position. You know, what are some workouts we can do with like single leg stabilization, you know, with explosive power? And that those little Bulgarian split squats thing, like that would be great for a baseball player, an infielder who's doing a lot of stuff off balance and having to get some explosive power through their core while they're, you know, really off balance.
But even on the flip side with that, just kind of going off that, you know, we also go with what not to do. Right. I'm not going to take a pitcher, and I'm not going to do dips with him. His shoulder is always in a compromised position over and over and over.
Right.
And so I put him in.
Protect that.
Right. And so then am I going to go put him in a position that he could potentially compromise it even more so? And that's you know, same thing. You know, when you have exactly what you need, you not only know what to do, but you know what to avoid. You know where the ROI is on these movements and when it's not there.
Definitely.
ROI being return on investment.
Yeah, I
guess. Yeah, so. We like acronyms in CrossFit.
It's a DC thing.
Is it a DC thing?
I think it's a DC thing. Everything is NIH, DOC, DOJ.
TFDR.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Resiliency. You know, I think this ties back into, you know, the accountability, but you know what? You have to be resilient. You have to know that you're going to get injured at some point. You have to know that, you know, you might see a stall in your progress, and you have to be mentally tough enough to keep pushing forward. You know, when these things happen, when it becomes difficult, can you push through? Can you do what needs to be done to get you through that hump, or can you realize that there's always something you can be doing. You know, you hurt your knee. Okay, what other weaknesses can you be working on? What can you be doing so that once that knee is healed, you can get right back into things as quickly as possible? Versus saying, well, man, I hurt my knee. I'm just gonna kind of sit this one out until it heals, and then kind of see where I go from there. It's like, no, I want to see you back in the gym. I want to see you working as hard as you possibly can on other things, and then and then the transition can be that much.
You're not perfect everywhere, so if something goes out, well, that's just more time to focus on something different. Yeah, definitely. I think that's, you see this in games a lot, where a team will get, 2 goals scored on them real quick, or a team will go on a 10-0 run in basketball, or a pitcher will get hit for, like 3 hits real quick right on them. And, what makes kind of a great team, a great athlete, a great player, whatever, or someone who has a team that has versus just some talent, I think, is that ability to fight through adversity.
Yeah.
It's when we are challenged that we really have our biggest chance to shine. Scott Hamilton, the Olympic figure skater, said that under pressure we either perform 15% better or worse.
I like that.
So when the pressure's on, it's kind of, and that's what resilience comes down to, is do I choose to be, am I going to be better because I'm under pressure, or am I going to be worse under pressure? Teams that are resilient, players who are resilient, have that kind of it factor. I think they're the ones who are likely going to step up. We're going to be 15% better. Who, they might get, the bases might be loaded, but that pitcher's going to all of a sudden focus up, sharpen up, and get out of that inning. That team that gets scored on twice and is down a couple of goals is going to tighten up and go and tie up the game and go ahead. The team that gets a 10-0 run taken on him is going to call that timeout, focus up, come back, and go on a 10-0 run of their own.
And as a spectator, watching the resilient teams and resilient athletes it's one of the best things about sports.
Oh, yeah.
For example, I was at the Caps game playing the Coyotes. I think that was last week, and they were down 2-0 with 10 minutes left. And I'm not a huge hockey fan. But they ended up coming back, scoring 3 goals in the next 9 minutes, and to win 3-2. And it was the most exciting thing I've been a part of in a long time. It was incredible.
There's nothing like a comeback.
Yeah, and again, I'm not a huge hockey fan, but this was just incredible. I was like, if every hockey game was like this, I might be about it. Might be good.
Hey, hockey's fun. But no, there is the resiliency at every level, whether it's in sports or just in life. Bad stuff is going to happen. It's what you make happen, from that. Stuff going downhill. They always talk about the Chinese word for chaos is just another way of saying opportunity. Out of bad things comes opportunity. If you mess up your knee, well, now you're going to have a lot of time to focus on, your back. Maybe your back is underdeveloped, and you can take a lot of time focusing on that. So by the time you get back in, you're going to have one area that is more developed. You're going to be stronger in one area, and then you can refocus in on those legs and knees. But I think mentally, that's a really hard thing, and being able to say, I'm not out of the fight yet. I'm going to keep on, swinging.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to learn, and a worthwhile lesson to learn.
And what it comes down to, with all 5 of these characteristics, again, goal-oriented, accountable, motivated, exact, and resilient, is these all make up what DeFranco defined as it. These are all learnable characteristics.
Yeah.
This is not something that you're innately born with. There's some people who develop them without knowing that they're developing them, but these can also be developed consciously and with lots and lots of effort. You just have to, you have to surround yourself with the right people. You have to find the examples of this being done in the past. I'm sure there's other kind of strategies to go about this, but if you want it bad enough, these are things that you can do. There are things that can be done to develop these characteristics.
Definitely.
And that might be something for another article or another podcast or video that we put together. But ways to set up, I guess, systems in your life so that you become more goal-oriented.
Gamer systems.
Yeah.
Not
gamer
talking
system.
about, a surround sound, a big screen TV, and a nice
Hooked
Xbox.
up to the PS4,
Yeah.
I'm a PS4 guy.
I don't have video games, man.
Well,
Yeah.
I was a PlayStation guy. Xbox, the controller is weird. I don't like how it feels in my hand.
Okay.
All right,
I
cool.
don't
So
know.
we talked. That was 40 minutes.
That's 40 minutes right there. That's 20 solid minutes on gaming. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
We covered that. Yeah, we did work.
So let's go back to resilience real quick. We're being resilient because we got some hate this week. We got some kind of tangential hate. In case you guys don't know, in addition to Rob and I doing stuff for the Varsity Strength Geeks, we've also been doing a lot of stuff for CrossFit Done Right, preparing for the open WODs that have been going on. And last week was a bit of a rough one, so we put together a nice video helping people prepare for their workouts, and we got a comment in reply. Just out of nowhere. We have no idea where this is from, but would you read it?
Yeah, just a little background before I read it. So the workout, has works up to heavy deadlifts, and basically our goal with the video was to let people know that it's not worth it. The deadlifts get very, very heavy, and if you lose your back position, then that's it. Alright, so that's all I'm going to say off the bat. I would like to, should I say the handle of the person?
Yes, please, absolutely.
Alright, so this was the comment left by Reeves76. It says, alright, so the advice for the deadlift is to do a deadlift, and the advice for a box jump is don't.
I think that's kind of clever. That's a little tongue-in-cheek. I like it. I also like that he starts with alright, which I kind of read in a McConaughey voice. Alright, I like it. Consider.
Solid, coach. And by coach, sarcasm. And by coach, I mean hipster and a rogue, trademarked. Sure. Bonus points for showing us how to maintain a good back angle for 35 reps at 365 pounds. Oh well, chiros and orthos got to pay for those beach houses somehow. I would say, on a scale of 1 to snarky.
That's pretty snarky!
That's pretty snarky. Pretty snarky.
Oh, is it? Is it snarky? I couldn't tell. It isn't just dripping with sarcasm.
I think.
Also, are you the hipster in that?
Well, see, that's what I was gonna say. So I think the thing I showed this to Coach Riva, and I think what irked him the most about it is that if you watch the video, I am in the video wearing my tortoiseshell glasses and my beanie,
looking very hipster.
Of course, yeah. And he is wearing a rogue t-shirt, which I would not say is hipster at all.
No.
And a hoodie, a CrossFit Done Right hoodie, unzipped sleeves with the 3/4 sleeve.
You know what it is? It's the white, again, great visuals for all you listening, but he's wearing a blue hoodie with kind of white pull strings on the hoodie. That's pretty hipster. That's just little details. Double in the details.
So what irked him the most is when I showed him this, is he read the hipster part, and then he immediately started laughing at me, and I said, dude, he's talking about you, bro.
Awesome.
And he was like, what the hell?
Awesome.
And yeah, so basically my response to this that Andy wouldn't let me post, which I completely, agree with.
Until we get more listeners and we deserve to start replying in a mean way. Well, one, we're not those guys. We're not.
No. It was just a gut reaction.
Oh, absolutely, I understand. It's your baby. You gotta fight for it.
Right, and it's basically I don't know what's more perplexing, the fact that he just completely doesn't know what a hipster is. Basically, I'm gonna tell this story real quick. So one of our clients, one of good friends, Vic, he calls me a hipster all the time, and he sent me this video one day on Facebook of Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec.
Right.
And basically Ron Swanson is the opposite of a hipster, but he was telling me that I was just like Ron Swanson, who is a hipster. And so I then sent him the definition of what a hipster was, and I was like, do you even know what a hipster is? And he was like, no, but I know it's you. And so that's kind of what it comes down to with
You know it when you see it.
Yeah. Apparently you know a hipster when you see a hipster.
Man.
And for Reeves76, I am not a hipster. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I would take that as a win. Reeves76, hey man, keep listening, keep sending snarky comments. They fuel our fire. And keep enjoying it. This is
trolls.
This is trolls.
Hashtag
Trolls be hating.
Trolls be hating.
But this is what I do like about that is the energy it took to write a snarky comment. I think that shows some effort. I think it takes a lot more. When there's someone who I really, don't like, I don't even give them the effort of being mean to them. I gotta like them at least a little bit to be mean, because I want them to be better. If I give you time to criticize you, I want you to be better. If I don't even bother to criticize you, it's because I think you're a lost cause. So I think this person is saying, I like it. You just need a little bit more. So maybe we need to give a nice shout out in the next one, the 14.4 one to Reeves 76. And
I think it's a great idea. And you know what? We're going to take this, this kind of abundant mindset sort of deal. And, Reeves 76, you gave us content.
Yeah.
To give to our people.
Woo!
Oh, thank you.
Namaste.
We appreciate it very much.
Namaste.
So, again, like Andy said, keep it up, man. We like it. We like it.
Cool.
All right. Where are we at?
We're probably 50-ish. That's what I'm guessing.
45.
Do you want to hit high school nutrition real quick? Or do you want to save that for a longer time?
Not, because that's something that I'm really passionate about, and something.
Let's get that into
I
it
wanna
in
hash out.
a deep way. Let's dig deep into that next time.
All right. So, what do we want to wrap up with today? Anything special?
I'm gonna wrap up with something. Getting hashtag nerd alert.
Perfect. I like
real
that we're
quick.
using that.
I am too. I don't like that. It's just me. But last night I was driving home and they're talking about how Google is buying up a bunch of robot companies, which I'm sure you've kind of heard about.
Yep.
Nest is kind of the big one in Boston Dynamics, which makes that creepy horse monster thing
Yeah,
that gallops
that's
around.
crazy.
Terrifying. And they're talking about not just how they're not just buying up those companies, but they're starting to really do a lot of work in their artificial intelligence programming, and they have new products coming out that are going to be kind of voice interfaces where you ask, like, they did a demonstration of, where is the White House? And the voice thing responds, the White House is in Washington, D.C. How far are we from it? You are 2.2 miles from it. The really cool thing about that, it seems off the hand, like if you're speaking to a human, of course you swap in White House for it. But now the computer is recognizing that by it, you mean the proper noun discussed in the sentence beforehand. That's awesome, like AI right there, or maybe not artificial intelligence, but certainly computer intelligence right there. And that was getting me thinking about, we're so fascinated right now going towards this kind of futurist world, and I started thinking about Isaac Asimov, who's this great futurist sci-fi writer who wrote a lot about robots. And we have that in one area, and then also we have this big push towards this primal side of us, getting into the caveman diet. People are really, CrossFit is a kind of a primal thing, just living heavy weights by yourself, versus the fact that we're developing robots now that are going to be not so expensive and able to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. And I'm just kind of wondering, what does this dichotomy say about where we are right now as a society? Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I actually think it's fantastic. It's exactly where we need to be going. We've gotten to this point where our health, especially in this country, has deteriorated so much, and we're dependent on so many different drugs, and we're dependent on all these things that just aren't good for our health physically. But then at the same time, the evolution of our brains are continuing to get better and better. So basically, up till before this kind of huge primal hit started coming in, we're evolving in terms of what our intelligence can create, but we're de-evolving in terms of our physical capacity. And I think with this primal piece coming into it, our physical capacity is also improving.
I agree
with the intelligence side of it. Problem is though,
are we going to start devolving our intelligence by relying too much on computers?
That's a good question. Or are we going? Or is this trend of re-evolving our physical state reverse, because we'll start relying on computers more?
Yeah, I think that's kind of fair. And as we start, it seems like we're getting, in the next 50 years, we're going to have some pretty smart, intelligent, useful robots. I'm just going to read, Isaac Asimov wrote down these 3 laws for robots. I'm going to paraphrase them real quick. The first law is that a robot should never harm a human. The second law is that a robot must always obey a human unless that violates rule number 1. The third law is that a robot must protect itself unless that violates rule number 1 or 2. and drones are kind of flying in the face of that already. But I think as we kind of move forward, and we might be relying more on robots and having a kind of actually interfacing with artificial intelligence on a larger scale than just Siri. It's going to be interesting to see how we both stay in touch with our primal side, which it's been great getting into that, and I think I've felt like more of a human being since I've kind of gotten into, oh yes, this is outdoors, rough and tough, and caveman, like not really caveman, but you know what I mean, Viking, being a Viking.
Sure.
We were meant to be Vikings, but also the future's out there, and we're going to be claiming it more quickly. Just last thing is that the cloud is Skynet. It's going to happen. It's terrifying. Basically, Google is creating the Terminator, and we have to, be prepared to live off of cockroaches and off of greeneries while combating Terminators in 50 years.
So this is exactly why the primal piece needs to have.
Precisely, because when the robot apocalypse comes, we need to be ready.
Exactly. Andy called it here first, guys.
Woo! John Connor, baby.
Skynet.
It's coming.
The cloud is Skynet.
The cloud is Skynet. On that cheerful note,
yep.
I think that does it. That brings Varsity talking about a movie that varsity kids in high school might like, The Terminator. Strength. You got to be strong to fight the Terminators, and then geeking out because we're talking about quoting some Asimov, talking about futurism versus primals. I think that's pretty geeky.
Yeah, I think it's good.
All right, Varsity Strength Geeks.
We out.
Let's get lost tonight. You could be my black Kate Moss tonight. Play secretary on the